For lesson 6 of chapter 3 today, we're going to be estimating square roots. So first we'll estimate square roots of numbers, then we'll approximate square roots, then we'll do a real-world application. Not all square roots are going to be perfect squares like the ones we were working with last lesson, where a number times itself will equal this number exactly. In this case, that would be 9 times 9. Sometimes we have numbers like this, 70, and no number times itself will equal 70. So it's our job then to estimate and then approximate to find a really close square root on our own. Here we have the square root of 30 is between two consecutive integers. Name the integers and explain our answer. Alright, so what would this be between? Well, you know, no numbers exist that you can multiply times itself to get 30. So we have to find one maybe below it and then above it. So what's the next perfect square below 30? Well, we know 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, and 6 times 6 is 36. So the one below 30 would be 5 times 5, which equals 25. Then also 6 times 6, we need one above it, and that would be 6 times 6. So this 30 is somewhere between 25 and 36, which is the squares of 5 and 6. So I know that the square root of 30 is somewhere between 5 and 6. So we'll write that down. Then explaining my answer, I'd say their squares are 25 and 36, which surround 30. So that would be my answer for that, somewhere between 5 and 6. Here we actually have to approximate square roots, meaning we don't just estimate, we actually try to find a pretty close to exact answer. So it says approximate the following square roots to the nearest hundredth. So just like before, we need to find a square root below 200 and then a square above 200 as well. So what number times itself would give us 200? Well, let's try 13 times 13. I know that's somewhere close. That's 169. 14 times 14. Oops. That's 196. Ooh, 196 rounds really close. So we'll say 14, which is 196. All right, then we had 15 then. What is 15 squared? 225. So I know that the answer is somewhere between 14 and 15, because a 14 is 196 and 15 is 225. So what's the exact answer to the nearest hundredth? To find my decimal, what I could do is I could find the total distance between 196 and 225. So I'd do that. I'll do 225 minus 196. That's 29. That becomes your denominator, 29. Then the numerator becomes how far away is this one from the lowest one. Okay, so 200 is 4 more than 196. So my numerator would be 4. All right, just to recap. The distance between the two squares, 14 squared and 15 squared, become my denominator. My numerator becomes how close 200 is to the lower one. So that'd be 4. How far away is that? So 4 over 29. I do 4 divided by 29. 0.137. So I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth, so it'd be 0.14. So I go to the lower number, 14, and it would be 14.14, because that number is between 14 and 15. So here's my approximated square root for 200. Now we have 73. So we're going to do that same thing we did here. I know that 8 times 8 would be 64, and that 9 times 9 is 81. So for the denominator, I need to find the total distance between 64 and 81. 81 minus 64, so that'd be a denominator of 17. And now 73 is how far away from the lower one? 73 is 9 above the lower one. So 9 over 17. So we do 9 divided by 17 then. And here's my decimal. 0.529, so 0.53. So we go with the lower number, 8.53 for our answer then. Here's a real-world application. You want to sew a fringe on a square tablecloth with an area of 500 square inches. Calculate the length of each side of the tablecloth and length of the fringe you will need to the nearest tenth of an inch. So if we start with a square, and we know that square is 500 inches, so we would know each side if we find the square root of this square. So we need to find the square root of 500. So if we're going to approximate this, we would say, okay, what number times itself is below 500? Let's try 23. That's 529, too high. Okay, so 22, 484. Here we go. So between 22, which is 484, and 23, which is what? 529. So now if we could do the numerator and denominator here, let's find the denominator first by doing 529 minus 484. So the difference there is 45. And then 500 is 16 above 484, so I'd do 16 over 45 and do my division problem. 0.3555, so 0.36. So it would be 22.36. But that's only one side, right? We found the length of a side. It tells us we need to do the length of the fringe we'll need on the perimeter. The fringe goes all the way around, so that's 4 sides. So I need to take this answer and I need to multiply times 4 because that's the length of all the way around this square. So 22.36 times 4 would be 89.44. And that would be our answer.